Keenum. Pastor Ropshire, if you would, please come to the well. And I'll invite the audience and everyone to please stand if you wish and remain standing through the Pledge of Allegiance.
Everyone, thank you, Mayor. Father, we thank you today for, first of all, for your goodness and your mercy and your grace. We thank you for the honor of being a part of what you are doing in the city of Clarksville. Father, I pray for Mayor Pitts and all of the council here tonight and all of their team members. I'm asking God for wisdom, divine wisdom and understanding, and for productivity and peace among the council members. Father, I pray for peace, safety, and protection over the city of Clarksville. And always we ask for your kingdom to come and your will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. And everybody said, amen. Thank you, Mayor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members, please register your attendance. Or not.
Mr. Zacharias?
Here.
Ms. McLaughlin? Here. Mr. Little? Mr. Red? Ms. Markey?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Holloman?
Here.
Ms. Allen? Ms. Reynolds?
Here.
Ms. Streetman?
Here.
Mr. Shekinab?
Here.
Ms. Lovato?
Here.
Mayor Pitts?
Here.
Okay. All members are present with the exception of councilpersons Little, Red, and Allen.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. First and only item on our agenda under new business, Resolution 47, 2023, a resolution adopting the Safe Streets and Roads for All SS4A Safety Action Plan. In order to get it properly before us, I'll entertain a motion in a second. Motion been made and properly seconded. Without objection, I'll ask Lauren Winters, our Director of Grants for the city, who wrote the grant to get us this planning grant, to come forward and give us a brief presentation on the results of that planning grant. Ms. Winters.
Thank you so much. I have a PowerPoint.
Hang on just 1 minute.
I didn't rehearse the song and dance. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
You should
I'm
always
sorry.
be
Interpretive
prepared.
dance is always welcome. Fight song?
Maybe.
All right.
Good. Okay.
You are recognized.
Okay, thank you. As Mayor Pitts mentioned, my name is Lauren Winters, and I'm the Grants Director for the City of Clarksville. And we are here tonight to adopt the Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan. You might hear me refer to this as SS4A because that is a mouthful. I hope that you've had time to review the action plan. It was made available in a draft format on both the city and the MPO's website, and it was also presented to you last week. Action plan, the why we have the action plan and the need for it. The Federal Highway Administration's Safe System Approach received funding, there you go, through the bipartisan infrastructure. Okay. I'll just keep going, even if we lose it. Through the bipartisan infrastructure law for the SS4A planning and implementation grants, the city, by way of the MPO, received a $250,000 2023 action plan grant, which allowed us to hire a consultant and develop this plan. In order to apply for 2024 implementation funding, we must adopt this plan by April 30th. So what makes this plan different? This grant-funded action plan focuses on roadway fatalities, safety, and behavioral patterns of users. Not only is this specific plan required to apply for implementation funding, but it is also used to supplement existing traffic studies, which typically primarily focus on infrastructure needs. First, we want to acknowledge those who have helped us get this plan developed. Mayor Pitts for seeing the need and supporting this grant and this action plan. For the steering committee, the MPO, we've got Stan with us here tonight, and Jill as well. Streets, police, transit, myself, and communications all served on the steering committee and will continue to serve on it going forward. Neil Schaefer, our consultant, we have VJ with us here tonight. Thank you to them. They have done an amazing job to have this be a user-friendly, easy to execute plan. And then also Clarksville citizens and respondents. We had over 1,300 responses, which is actually a very large number for such a plan. So this evening, we're going to go over the following, and you'll notice some of these graphics might seem a little small. We pulled these from the action plan itself, but as I mentioned, it is available on the website, so you can view it in a larger format. So tonight, we're going to go over recognizing the need, the public engagement that occurred. We're going to review the Department of Transportation safe system approach, as well as our vision and proven safety strategies and countermeasures that have been identified in this action plan, and moving forward with federal funding, because that is my favorite. This graphic right here is from page 22 in the action plan, and this is how we go about recognizing a need. So from 2018 to 2022, that is the data set that we used. We had 26,875 total crashes. If you look at that graphic there, the bars on the right-hand side in red, those are fatal crashes, and across all 5 years, those are 92. If you look to the bars on the left in the yellow, there are 394 serious injury crashes within those 26,875 total crashes. This allowed us to identify high injury networks as well as ways to support vulnerable roadway users, and we will speak about that later because that is very important to the SS4A grant. As previously mentioned, we had over 1,300 responses. If you look at this, this is the survey inset from phase 1. I call it a flip book. I hope all of you participated in providing responses. I personally found it very user-friendly. I liked the map and then I could pinpoint and drop things. Our round 1 was this online user-friendly survey. It was easy to navigate, had the map to pinpoint, and over 1,000 responses were received in this format. At the same time, they also did Christmas on the Cumberland for some in-person outreach. Round 2 was conducted at Manna Cafe, and this was based on some preliminary information that we received from those round 1 responses. As I previously mentioned, we have this focus on vulnerable roadway users. And so we went into a boots on the ground type activity, and we had 2 days of outreach. One was a shower event and one was a food distribution event, and honestly got some of the most authentic, best feedback from those vulnerable roadway users. And then round 3 was when the 150-page-ish plan was made available for public review and comments beginning on April 4th. This graphic right here, it shows the citizens' concerns, and you really can't read it. Again, all of this comes directly from the action plan, but this graphic has it by poverty status. We talked about the vulnerable roadway users. We talk about disproportionately impacted populations. The largest concerns were roadway design, unsafe intersections, lack of pedestrian infrastructure, and lack of roadway lighting. This graphic right here, while it is represented by poverty status, no matter how the demographic information is presented throughout the action plan, these remain the top 4 largest concerns across all data sets. So let's talk about the Department of Transportation safe system approach. I'm very visual. I love this graphic. It's just beautiful. It kind of looks like pie. So we're addressing the safety of all roadway users. We're encouraging vehicles that are designed for safety. We're looking to reduce speed. We're looking for roads that are designed to accommodate human mistakes. The DOT does acknowledge that human error is possible, and so they attempt to remove human error out of the equation as much as they can. And also rapid response times. So our vision, this comes directly from page 5 in our action plan. It is 3 separate goals there. So the first one is education. So we want to educate residents on the importance of transportation safety. Also, goal 2, we have improved driver behavior. That could be with targeted enforcement, posting additional signage. And then number 3, which is really the bulk of what we're looking for in a future grant application, is improving infrastructure. And this includes intersection and roadway projects. Okay, so some proven safety strategies and countermeasures. Again, this all comes from the action plan that Neil Schaefer has provided to us. There is a table of countermeasures on page 91 in your action plan. Some of those that are listed, crosswalk visibility enhancements, pedestrian hybrid, and rapid flashing beacons. You can construct medians and pedestrian refuge islands, pedestrian signal improvements, increased roadway lighting, and intersection improvements to include new traffic signals. And you see that that example from the DOT of a possible a pedestrian crossing in there. There is a full breakdown of some suggested projects or items that we could do on pages 86 through 89 of your action plan. This next one, again, looks very small, but it is large in your action plan. This is the high injury network. So this is one of the focuses of the Safe Streets for All. We talked about those vulnerable roadway users. I don't know if there's a pointer on here, but in my mind, if there was, you can probably identify some of the areas that you already know, the roadway segments. If they're red, those are roadway segments that have a lot of accidents. If you see what we call an olive, where it's got the yellow with the purple dot in it, that's where you're going to have some pedestrian fatalities. It's probably not coming as a surprise, the areas that you're seeing on this map. Again, this is on page 30. This map is right here of your action plan. Okay, so what exactly does the plan do for us? So it identifies roadway segments, intersections, and behaviors, as we've discussed. It provides solution to address those, which is a requirement of applying for implementation funding. It supports the mission for 0 roadway fatalities by 2050, and it allows us to apply for implementation funding. And just to kind of give you a background of why we're here on April 25th to pass this action plan, in 2022, implementation grants had a due date of September. In 2023, they had a due date of July. And in 2024, they have a due date of May. So we have to adopt an action plan by April 30 in order to apply for funding next month. Our intent for this year's application and for future year's application, this is year 3 of a 5-year funding, is to have a tiered approach in application and implementation. You do have 5 years to complete those projects when they're awarded. So our goal is to apply in tiers, so we stagger it. Also, I want to emphasize that this grant here is meant for roadway improvements, not the building of new road facilities. And that is all I have on the action plan.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Winters. Any questions for Ms. Winters? Councilperson Smith, you're recognized.
This might be for you, Mayor. I don't know. But thank you, and thank you for that great report. I know that this plan is for improvement of streets, and I read something about distracted driving. Can you explain to me what would the police be looking for distracted driving? And I know what it is, but for the sake of the people, our citizens, I would like that to be known.
So I will defer to the actual legalities of distracted driving, but I will take this time to plug another grant that we have through the Tennessee Highway Safety Office, which focuses on distracted driving. That is something they will have enforcement and engagement events for, and that is something that we report to the Tennessee Highway Safety Office.
Texting and driving, talking
That's what
on
I
your
thought.
phone without
Yeah.
being hands-free, which is state law now, those sorts of things.
Combing your hair
Yeah.
in the car, and, putting
Reaching
on
for
your
a
makeup,
fry.
like some people.
Reading the
stuff like
newspaper.
that. Yeah. So my concern is this, how do they know that the people will be doing things that will cause them to, be distracted? How do they know? Are they gonna be, maybe, their videos on their cars or what? Because some people text while they're driving, but they're using their earpiece to
Right.
do that.
Yeah, for this particular grant, so this isn't a demonstration grant, but an implementation grant that would focus on construction. There are some behaviors that you can see in this action plan. I know that the consultants and all of us in the steering committee, we were, not in a good way, amazed at the number of single vehicle crashes that occur, which we can assume a majority of those might be distracted driving, turning off. So this particular grant, it is for implementation, but the safety action plan does identify the need for engagement and enforcement.
And the reason I ask that is because we want to be careful when we come to distracted driving, because polices do pull over, not our polices now, let me get that clear. They do pull over people unnecessarily sometimes. Sometimes it's a false pullover, and I've got the complaints, so I'm not just talking out of the side of my neck. I'm telling the truth, what I've heard and what I've seen in the past. But our police department has improved a lot over the years, and I thank them for that. But there have been complaints about being pulled over for no reason. So that's why I was pinpointing distracted driving, to make sure this would not cause harassment or unnecessary enforcement in this community, because we've been a pretty good police department, and I thank them for that. And thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Councilperson McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been involved with the Clarksville Traffic Safety Task Force for several years, and to the previous speaker, they get funding. I think this is what the grant will be used for, to do specials like there's DUI specials on certain holidays and things like that, where they get the law enforcement agencies get on a group and go look for people doing distracted driving. So I won't say how they do that because it's a secret, but that's usually what those grants are used for, is focusing on areas where there's high collisions and whatnot. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson Smith.
Thank you. Ward two, I'm very well of that, aware of that. My dad was a police here in this city for many, many years. And so I'm well aware that they do get funds for particular things. And I'm aware of that. Thank you.
All right, any other comment or question? Thank you, Lauren. All right, we're back into session. Any further comment or question about Resolution 47? Seeing none, hearing none, are you ready to vote? All members, please cast your vote. Cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
10 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain.
Resolution 47 is adopted. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is public comment. Any member of the public wish to address the council? Seeing none, we're now ready for mayor and council member comments. Any member of the council wish to address the council? Councilperson McLaughlin.
Well, I was going to do it later, but I can do it now since we just talked about traffic safety.
Okay.
So I don't know if you all got the email that these signs are available through Lisa McLean at Montgomery County Traffic Safety. I have one for each of you in my car if you want one, because they're going through pretty fast. So if after the meeting you want to go with me, I've got the wires and everything. But if we all have one in our yards, which I have one from last year, maybe somebody will look at it. But anyway, I do have these if you want them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say to the previous speaker that I actually saw somebody walking away from the courthouse with it yesterday, and it was funny that I was driving behind somebody and they were carrying it, and the person ahead of me immediately put on their brakes and slowed down. I was like, well, I guess the sign works.
All right, it's very subtle, very subtle. All right, any other comment from council? I want to say thank you to VJ with Neil Schaefer. Thank you for your help with the grant and with the plan. And then Stan Williams is in the audience. Stan is the director of our Metropolitan Planning Organization at the Regional Planning Commission, at least until the end of May. He is retiring after 27 years and 8 months with our MPO, and he deserves a round of applause for his work. All right, no other comment. The purpose for which this special session of this Clarksville City Council having been accomplished, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Without objection, we're adjourned. See you at 4:30. Afternoon and welcome back. This is the executive session of the Clarksville City Council, April 25th, 2024. First item on our agenda is a presentation from still our Montgomery County Assessor of Property, Erin Hester. Ms. Hester, if you would, please come forward and talk to us.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. It is a pleasure to be in front of y'all today. 2024 is a big year for more than just elections. It is a county-wide revaluation year. And I am going to email Lisa the document that I'm speaking from, but you should have a brochure in front of you that explains the 2024 revaluation. I'm going to hit a couple of points on the revaluation, some of the, the why, and then the misconceptions that people have of the revaluation. And then I will go through this document very briefly, which is just these are the questions that you're likely going to get from your constituents so that you are armed when those questions start coming. When are those questions going to start coming? Probably pretty soon. The state has our reappraisal program now. They've had it for about a week. They will do lots of things, tests and make sure that we are fair and equitable, because that is the whole point of the revaluation. And then they will let us know that we have met all the metrics of the revaluation, and then we can start sending out change notices. So let me hit pause there. What is a reappraisal? Excuse me, and why do we do it? The last time we reappraised it was 2019. Since 2019, this county has seen historic growth. But the point of the reappraisal is to equalize property value across all markets in Montgomery County. So we have markets that grow at a greater rate than other markets. Sango is always probably going to grow at a greater rate than, say, maybe Cumberland Heights, because it is closer to the interstate. So when you revalue and you only do it cyclically, then there is the markets do what the markets do. And it is our responsibility then at the year of the reappraisal to revalue so that every real property parcel in Montgomery County is at 100% of market value. That is our goal. As people are concerned about what their value is, really they're concerned about taxes. So one of the things that I like to recommend is when you see this, what's going to be a blue postcard, then there's going to be a market value on that postcard. If you would not or could not put a sign in your front yard and sell your home for that price, please come talk to us. There are a lot of things that happen in someone's property that we don't have awareness of if the property owner does not have a dialogue with us. Part of the reappraisal program is we have the responsibility to visually inspect every real property parcel in the county in the years leading up to the revaluation. So right now we're sitting at nearly 100,000 real property parcels, and we have done a visual inspection on all of those over the last 4 years using aerial images. So what that doesn't tell us is what's going on inside that house. So I'll tell you a story from 2019. This is the best way that I know to illustrate this. We had a gentleman come in who had just retired on disability from being a long-term, long-range truck driver. He had moved in with his mom and dad, who are very elderly and also disabled. They lived in the Bel Air part of Clarksville. They had a failing basement wall, subgrade basement wall. There's no way we can see what's happening in that house underground from the air. So he came in and he had his change notice, and I think we had somewhere around $139,000 on it. And he said, there's no way that we can get this for our house. And he explained what was going on with the basement wall. And we told him, please bring us evidence. Let us see what that looks like inside, because trust but verify. And then get a quote. So he got a quote from USS. It was going to be $45,000 to remediate the failing basement wall. We took that $45,000 quote and we took $45,000 off the market value of that home, because it's not going to sell at full market value for the price of that house when it has a cure that needs to be applied that extensively. So I say that to say, please encourage your friends, your family, your church group, your network, your social clubs, your book club. Have a dialogue with us. You're going to get a postcard. It's going to be a much bigger number than what it was in 2019. But have a dialogue with us. So what happens after we send out that change notice and we have those new market values on all of these real property parcels in Montgomery County? It is the job of the assessor of property, in conjunction with, for county government, the accounts and budgets department, for city government, finance and revenue, to calculate a new certified tax rate. So the reappraisal product itself is revenue neutral to the jurisdiction. The way that it stays revenue neutral to the jurisdiction is through the calculation of this certified tax rate. So we will work with the individual accounting offices to agree upon and calculate a certified tax rate. That tax rate will come greatly down from the, I believe it's $1.23 it is now, to adjust for the increase in the market values from the last reappraisal year. So values are going to do this, certified tax rate is going to do this. The reappraisal is not a money grab. It is not a revenue generator. And those are common misconceptions with people. So our job as the assessor of property for Montgomery County and for the city of Clarksville is to make sure that all real property parcels have a market value. That's commercial, industrial, farm, and residential. I tend to just speak about residential because it is the easiest to explain and for most of us to understand. I'm happy to answer questions about anything. So what is the blue postcard? The blue postcard is going to be the real property postcard, and that's going to have the new market value. It's going to have the assessed value. So that's the classification. Is it residential, commercial, ag, industrial? And then it's going to have last year's rate. So you can compare what they paid taxes on last year to what they paid taxes on, or what they will pay taxes on for 24. Why did I get it? Why are you doing this? You got it because it's a revaluation year. Why do we do it? Because we have to equalize property value across the county, and that's done cyclically, according to state law. Are you just trying to raise money for insert project here? You know, in 2019, it was the event center. I imagine it'll still be the event center. In 2014, it was the Veterans Plaza parking lot. So no, Truth in Taxation says the revaluation process has to be revenue neutral. That is achieved with a certified tax rate. That is on the document that Lisa will email you. It is also in the brochure that you have in front of you. How do we get to this amount? We use open market qualified arm's length sales from calendar year 2023. We value by market area. What are the 3 rules of real estate? Location, location, location. So we value land by market area. All improvements are valued like other improvements. A split level is going to start at the same base rate as every other split level in Montgomery County, and so on. They will be adjusted according to effective age, so depreciated by age, and then of course increase or decrease by square footage, and then other physical attributes. Is it an average? Every split level is built this way, or is this one nicer, or is this one not as nice? What is my values too high or too low? Every property owner in the state of Tennessee has the right to appeal their property value to the assessor's office and up that line every single year, not just in the year of reappraisal. And we are always willing to help property owners do that. It is important to me that property owners understand it is not an insult to us if you come in and want to appeal your value. We want to work with you. We want to make sure our data is correct, and we don't want anybody paying more or less than their fair share. And then, you know, can you help me? I've given you the contact information for the assessor's office. Y'all know me, you know how to get to me. If there are problems, if your constituent is running up against something that I need to get involved in, please let me know. And I'm happy to take any questions you have right now.
Thank you. We've got one. Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I know it's in the brochure, but just for the point of the public watching, when is the deadline for individuals to be able to appeal the reappraisal?
Absolutely. So County Board of Equalization, according to state law, has to start on June 1. I believe that's a Saturday, so we'll be starting on Monday. We would love to have the informal process with everybody going into that. So somebody can go straight to County Board of Equalization. So let me give you June 3rd as the answer to your question.
Okay.
County Board of Equalization is going to want us to have gotten information from them first. So I ask the public work with us. We will help you. We will help get you to county board. We will help prepare you for county board. I know that's daunting to get in front of a body that you don't know and have to talk about something that maybe you don't do every day. So let's use June 3rd as the guide for everybody. But what the law says is as long as county board is in session, the property owner has a right to be heard.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Any other comment or question? Councilperson Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know my face. I'm always down there. And I thank you for what you do. You do a good job in helping the best way you can and know how. How does the Airbnb rental properties, does that affect your house value?
The Airbnb is not going to affect the value of a single family home on the same street, but they are treated differently. And let me explain how. The law says that if an Airbnb is owner occupied, so maybe somebody lives upstairs and they advertise and rent out their lower level. That is considered still classified as residential, and they will have a tangible personal property account still to go with that. So, still paying at that residential, what the state refers to as that preferred rate, the 25%, and then a personal property account. However, if somebody has a short-term rental and it is not owner occupied and it is always available for rent, that one is going to be classified at 40% because it is a commercial use. And sales tax and hotel motel taxes are collected through that online marketplace. So it may be Airbnb, it may be VBRO, submitted directly to the state. But really all the assessor cares about is making sure that the classification is appropriate and that there is a tangible personal property account set up for the assets that are held for use in the short-term rental part of the property.
Thank you. And I have one more question. I don't know if you can answer this or not, but you know, seniors, they get to apply for income, I guess you call, you know, based on your income, how you can pay a lower tax rate, or how, can you tell us how that works?
So that program is administered through the trustee's office. There are 3 of them. There's senior tax freeze, there is tax relief, and then there is disabled veterans tax relief. The middle one, the tax relief program, it's senior and or disabled. There's income limits on tax freeze and tax relief. The deadline, the deadline was April 5th for the last year. But you can still apply for the next year. And I can't tell you income requirements because they change every year.
That's okay.
But it all should be on the county trustees' website. And
Can you go through the state if the deadline is over here? I done missed it.
I don't know.
I don't know. I'll check with them.
I would
I'll
check with either the county or Miss Mata may know
Okay. Thank
because
you
they're
very
involved in
much.
that also.
Thank you. You do a good job.
Thank you,
I remember when you
Councilwoman.
first started, it was a little rough with us. But we done come out on top now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any comment or question? I know you've got some mental gymnastics that you have to do in order to figure out what the appeal percentage is going to be, because it's not 100% of the property that we'll collect taxes on. There's a certain percentage, and you have been very, very successful in helping us, the city and the county, get that percentage to a manageable number. And so on behalf of the city, I want to say thank you, Erin, for the work you did, because that helped stabilize our revenue stream. Again, it's not a money grab, but it's very important to our budgeting process.
It absolutely is. Thank you, Mayor.
So thank you. Thank you very much for being here.
Absolutely. Please reach out if y'all need anything.
We will.
Thank you.
All right, we're now ready for the Planning Commission report. Mr. Tindall, I'm sorry, you got to follow the assessor of property.
That's all right. We love working with her and her department.
First item is item A, ordinance 84, 2023-24. Mr. Tindall, please, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. A couple of rezoning cases for you tonight. The first from our department is Z5 2024. This was deferred a couple months at the Planning Commission to work with the street department and get a traffic assessment done for this property. This is an application of the Conwood Company, or formerly the American Snuff Company, and John Wilson is the agent. This is just shy of 10 acres, 9.94 acres, several parcels, currently zoned M1 and requesting to go to CBD Central Business District. It's 8 parcels south of Franklin Street and Commerce Street, west of 10th Street, east of 7th Street, and 4 additional parcels at the southwest corner of Commerce and 10th. This is all in City Council Ward number 6. The applicant's statement for rezoning is for the redevelopment of an existing industrial area. Here's a little further view. I'm sure many of you are aware of it. It does include both the traditional tobacco processing plants as well as the A&P store, as some of you may know out there as well, and some vacant parcels. You can see the CBD zoning is adjacent to the west here, coming out of downtown and University Avenue and working its way that way. Here's looking from 10th Street. At your back is the City Street Department office. It's important to note in this process, and it should be attached to the staff report in your tablets, there is a presentation that has been completed by the Conwood Company's consultants. Since they only have 5 minutes, I'll go into a little bit of this detail. This has probably been 6 or 7 months in the making. We visited this site way back in October, November with Conwood Company. I've toured all of these buildings, the oldest here on the left, more timber construction inside. This one in the middle here is solid concrete construction that has columns you can't even get your arms around. That is a solid building right there. British American Tobacco, who is the parent company of American Snuff Company, you know, these companies have been acquired several times throughout history. They have a worldwide portfolio of properties. And this is just one of the many that they did a space analysis on worldwide. They're working in South Africa, Holland, Canada, America, everywhere else. And they evaluated all their properties. What American Snuff has done recently is relocated assets out of Memphis and moved them up Guthrie Highway. And kind of quietly, they've invested over $50 million out at the old Union Carbide facility out there on Guthrie Highway and brought in about 150 additional workers. They don't have a need for this building anymore. It was sort of a backup plan for their operation should something ever happen in Memphis or Guthrie and they have to use it. They still have machines in there. It still smells like tobacco. There's still some leaves hanging around when you walk around. But they've decided at this point that there's several properties around the world that they're going to dispose of. And then there's a special category, which this one falls into, like the others I mentioned in Holland, South Africa, and others, that they want to preserve. And this is about preserving the 2 historic buildings that you see here, the one on the left and then the one I just showed you on the right. The newer metal buildings will likely go away. You do have a conceptual master plan in there. You'll have 2 folks speaking likely next Thursday. I will not be here, unfortunately, but they will be here. They both work for Balanced View, which is the consulting firm that is working with British American Tobacco. One gentleman's in Louisville, Kentucky. The other is flying in from England to talk about their vision. And they are going to sell this as a project and not as a property. And it will be deed restricted, and they will have work with developers who can implement the vision for this property, which you can see on your tablets. When we met with them, really the CBD district is the only district that really allows them to reach the full potential of their idea, which includes residential, commercial, office space, event space. They're potentially talking about doing a museum in there that pays homage to the tobacco history of Montgomery County. Hotel possibly, parking deck, you name it. They have quite a cadre of uses in there. They cite the proximity to downtown, Madison Street, and APSU as the real keys here, and they have done this elsewhere. And as you can see in that packet they put in your tablet, they have just completed a project very similar. The building looks almost identical to the building here in Clarksville, but they did something similar in Memphis, and it's fully leased up and operating. Department comments. A traffic assessment was required. The street department reviewed and accepted the conclusions and recommendations provided in the report. However, they asked for some clarifications from the engineer. They got that back to them. In this case, this is going to be a lot of walking, a lot of pedestrian activity. So the calculations are a little slightly different than assuming everything is going to drive to this site. You can also see the other comments from the school system with their capacities listed. Difficult to tell how many units they're going to get out of this. It really depends on the development, but what you have right now is a industrial site, and you're making it into a mixed-use type of site. So really kind of in the end, apples to apples, you're trading maybe trucks for cars, and shift work for more trips throughout the day. Planning staff does recommend approval. The request is consistent with the land use plan. The CBD zoning district provides the opportunity to remove M1 light industrial from the downtown area while providing a mixed use potential of commercial, retail, and residential for these parcels in close proximity to downtown and APSU. The request is an extension of the established CBD district. The opportunity for mixed commercial, retail, and residential uses will be complementary to the established government, professional, financial, and cultural activities already established in the downtown core and 10th Street areas. Pedestrian-oriented uses are encouraged, while uses related to vehicular traffic are discouraged. No other environmental issues were identified, and the Planning Commission also recommends approval.
Thank you, Mr. Tyndall. Any comment or question? Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized.
Yeah, Mr. Till, why did we not do a PUD for this? I mean, they've done a lot of work. Why did they not come in as a PUD?
I think for what their vision is still in the works. A PUD, I think, would be a little more restrictive for something like this. And the CBD district with its zero lot lines, its parking flexibility and its height flexibility and its use flexibility was really the right way to go as they work on their vision for this project.
Any other comment or question? Councilperson Smith, you're recognized.
Mr. Tindall, thank you for explaining this so in detailed. I heard you say something about hotel, museum, residential, and I know you don't really know their vision right now, and they're still trying to work it out. I just pray they don't put a hotel over there. It's already enough traffic over there in that area, and it's next to the park, so I don't know if it would be that safe to put a hotel over there. You have little children playing in the park, a lot of things going on. We just don't want it to bring about more trouble. You understand what I'm saying? More violence, gun violence, all these things that can be a possibility. Okay, so I'm for units for Austin P maybe. Whatever, but just don't want to put stuff there that's just going to bring more gun violence, crime, and that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Councilperson McLaughlin?
Mr. Tyndall, at what point
If this is passed, at what point do potential required improvements to 10th Street and Commerce Street take place? Because right now, you had mentioned it's, delivery traffic. Well, that's been absent for years. But if you're gonna add a high concentration of people, that part of Commerce Street is narrow. 10th Street, where you come out right there by the street department and the train station. I was just wondering, at what point during the process does that come up, and are they willing to make necessary improvements based on what their final plan looks like?
Again, I encourage you to look at their concept. They have a conceptual master plan bulk use map that you can look at there. We got to be careful about the fine balance of this is downtown and not necessarily the auto-dependent suburbs. So while we do want to accommodate the ability for automobile traffic and people to come in to the site, there is the opportunity for a lot of this traffic to be diverted to foot traffic, or what we kind of call in the planning is park once. Park once somewhere, hit a couple sites, go back to your car, walk the 2 or 3 blocks back or forth to where you may have parked. They are indicating that they would like to continue, I believe it's 8th Street up there, through the property. So actually help connect the grid a little further, which will help distribute traffic. But to answer the original question, when would those improvements come? It would be as the project comes online for different portions of its redevelopment. So all these different improvements would come through the Planning Commission and be evaluated with the street department every time they come with a different site plan, which may not be an entire site plan at once. It may be bits and pieces. We do have a traffic assessment for the entire potential build out. No specific improvements to my knowledge were called out at this point, but it would be evaluated every step along that way.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Tyndall, you referenced it briefly about the parking flexibility. Can you expand a little bit about, with the CBD, what the parking requirements would be?
So technically, the CBD district has 0 parking requirements. So there's no minimum for if a 150 key hotel came in, they don't have to put the 150 spaces in, for instance. But I will tell you, it's my philosophy that parking should be viewed as a utility and could be a market decision. Would you open a hotel with no parking? No, it's not going to succeed. So I think it gives the applicant the flexibility to do what they believe is right. They may have a history of working in that kind of environment and say, we can get by with 90 spaces because we know we get an average of maybe 3 people per car in our hotel per night, so we don't need 1 per room. So it's we kind of leave it up to the owners. There is some on-street opportunities. There's some off-street opportunities. There's some other lots in the area that may be able to be tapped into. So very similar to when we worked with the Vulcan PUD over there on College Street. That is not parked for a sellout Saturday night game. There's opportunities to walk a quarter mile or a half a mile to other parking facilities in the area. So this is also the type of environment where someone who might live there may not even own a car, may just have a bike or a moped or a motorcycle or something like that too. So we want to be flexible to work with them going forward. They do have parking built in their plan in a form of a parking deck and some surface and street parking that they would provide. And again, that would be taken on a step-by-step basis as this comes through the site planning process.
Okay, thank you. Councilperson Smith?
Thank you, Mayor. You are aware of the parking problem with the buildings down there now, near Austin Peay State University, where the students stay. Those 2 buildings that were built. I don't know the name of them, but one of them is blue and yellow. But anyway, the students are getting tickets because they don't have nowhere to park where they're staying. So I would hope, and I'm sure you would, make sure that, they have adequate parking, because it becomes a lot of money being charged to the students from Austin Peay, and I've gotten complaints on that. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely not something that's going to be built overnight, so I do think we'll have plenty of time to work with them as they shape their vision.
All right, we're ready for item B, ordinance 93, 2023-24. Mr. Tyndall, please, sir.
Let me get there. All right, this is Planning Commission case Z14, 2024. This and the following ordinance are both for the portions of the same larger piece of property, which is approximately 140 total acres. So just keep that in your mind as we go through the next two projects. This is the application of William Ballou, 36.66 acres, currently zoned agricultural and requesting to go to R1 single family residential. It is an extension of the R1 to the west. And the piece of, just for reference, the green to the south of this parcel is the next property request that you'll see. This is in Council Ward number 8. It's a portion of attractive land fronting the west frontage of Needmore Road and the Needmore Road Cardinal Creek Drive intersection. Also, for reference, the Planning Commission last month got a roadway plan, so not for lots, but did show a roadway plan with a road going through this piece of property, kind of like the upside down L that would connect to Cardinal Creek and back out, providing some additional access points to the subdivision at Cardinal Creek. Cardinal Creek is currently capped at what they've got out there right now. They can't build any more lots until they had more access points. Mr. Ballou is going to build a road, and this rezoning comes on the heels of that roadway preliminarily being approved, which would allow them to maximize the total amount of units back there, approximately 550. Here's the entrance to Cardinal Creek, looking south on Needmore Road. The property's just behind these houses here. And there's the entrance to Cardinal Creek. Here's Needmore Road in that area. We are at the start of the property. Our back is at the property right here. And there's looking from the subdivision into the property, which lies a little lower than it. Another little further down in the subdivision, looking back at the property. And the whole property is pretty much trees, rolling hills, or some other areas. They are starting to clear a portion of it. There was a traffic assessment required in the street department. Again, this project and the one just south of it, they asked for the traffic assessment to be done as one large traffic assessment with the case of Z15. They received it. They, if approved for the single family, Needmore would need to be widened to 3 lanes. They've asked it to dedicate right away for 5 total lanes down to the bridge. And a traffic study will be required at the subdivision phase to also determine whether or not 5 lanes is necessary when it's built. We also received comments from the school system. Interesting enough, this corner of Needmore Road goes to West Creek Elementary. No other department comments or concerns listed. Historical estimates for this portion of the property, this 36 acres, would be approximately 72 houses or lots. Staff does recommend approval. And again, I want you to keep this in mind with the presentation on the next piece of property. The proposed zoning request is consistent with the land use plan. The request is consistent with the development pattern for the area and an extension of the established R1 to the north and west. Roadway improvements will be necessitated and required by the developer as part of the future development of this site, and no adverse environmental issues were identified. The Planning Commission also recommended approval.
Thank you, Mr. Tyndall. Any comment or question regarding ordinance 93? Seeing none, we're ready for item C, ordinance 94, 2023-24. Mr. Tyndall.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. This is Z15 2024, also an application of William Ballou. This is 110.33 acres, currently zoned AG, requesting to go to R4 multifamily. It is not an extension of the R4. As you can see, there's some smaller portions of R4 to the north up near Hazelwood and Boy Scout Road area. Again, this is City Council Ward number 8. It's a property with rolling hills, a recently cleared tree line, a creek that borders the southern portion of the property. The applicant's statement is to obtain a higher density residential development to aid in the cost of the developer-funded road improvements. Very similar pictures to the last one. This time we're just a little further down Needmore Road. You can see the subdivision of Cardinal Creek there, backing up to these properties here. There is a stub road coming out of Cardinal Creek to the property. Department comments. Possible water and sewer main upgrades will be required. Again, a traffic assessment was required combined with the previous case, Z14-2024. Widening of Needmore Road to 3 lanes, dedicate right-of-way for 5 lanes to the bridge, and to study to required at the subdivision, and I would assume that would also mean the site plan to determine if additional 5 lanes is necessary. Stream buffers are present on this property and will be evaluated at preliminary plat or site plan. And the school system comments about their capacities listed. Buckle up. Historical estimates for units, 1,326 units. Staff does recommend disapproval. The proposed zoning request is inconsistent with the land use plan. The request appears to be an over-concentration of R4 multifamily residential zoning for the area. There does not appear to be adequate amount of goods or services in the immediate area to support such a large potential or concentration of residential units. The RPC staff recommends, and this could also be said of the previous parcel, or previous case, the RPC recommends that the applicant consider a planned unit development or a master planned community design for this site. The 110 acres could be designed with an appropriate mixture of housing types, a variety of goods, services, open spaces, and pedestrian connectivity. Roadway improvements will be necessitated and required by the developer as part of future developments of this site. That kind of goes without saying, regardless of what is built here, improvements would be needed. And no adverse environmental issues were identified with this request. The Planning Commission also recommends disapproval.
Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized.
Thank you, Ashley, for those comments, because that's what I was thinking, the PUD. But how would, if we applied our new comprehensive plan, like, are we going to, instead of each of these, it's a lot of property, instead of everybody going out and reinventing the wheel, are we going to further create, based on our plan, really some best use and some designs that we recommend as a city, like this is how you do your roads and this is how you do your water through here, and make it easier for them so it's done right instead of everybody figuring it out every time for these infill kind of projects?
Yes, and this is one of the largest infill properties still remaining in the area. I think we're just at the start of doing that. We're intending to start a zoning code rewrite this summer, which would take care of our portion. We want to work with the street department on our sort of road hierarchy list of different types of road sections that for different parts of town. But this is an example where it would be great to come to talk to the Planning Commission first and get our ideas on some highest and best practices for development of large parcels in an area like this.
Because I just also say that because you did approve a corner of it, and then what's to stop them to come piece by piece by piece in the future? I mean, I just think even approving that corner is a missed opportunity of what we could do with that entire, I always look across from the hospital and all the development that we did in that property between the winery and a park, and what a missed opportunity for a really nice planned use development community we could have there, and that's what I see here too. But if we start, then we continue to.
I will tell you, staff didn't feel there was enough to deny the other request, but we do feel that if both the previous request and this request were lumped together into a 140-acre design, with the single family in the back there, that's already been approved, but the size of this and the sheer number of people, as currently proposed, would necessitate some goods and services, office space, services that meet human needs out there, which right now you don't have much within this picture. You have a neighborhood market about 3 miles to the south, a future grocery store about 3 miles to the north, but that requires driving in either direction. So there are great examples around the country of things you can do in properties like this, and I would hope to have an opportunity to work on something like that.
Thanks.
Councilperson Zacharias, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. So I will never commit to a vote one way or the other until we've had a chance to hear from everybody. But I'm just asking anybody out there in the public, whether it be a developer, if you can make this make sense to me, please get in touch. Because 1,300 more homes on Needmore, I mean, that's all I've got there. I'm sorry.
Any other comment or question?
One more thing to add on this, just for scale, because as staff, we were trying to get our heads around how big is this. The similar developer just developed some multifamily project off exit 11, and MLK Boulevard over there. The size of that parcel is 46 acres for scale. So this is more than twice that size of that project.
Okay, thank you. We're now ready for item D, ordinance 95, 2023-24. Mr. Tindall, please, sir.
And I will call your attention, there are some public emails attached to that application. This is Z17 2024. This is the application of Donald or Maureen Sager. 0.29 acres. It's a portion of a parcel. The parcel is currently zoned R1. It is at the corner of Richview Road and Chickasaw Drive, Council Ward number 10. It's again, portion of a parcel, and the applicant's statement is to subdivide a single-family lot off a larger lot to construct a single-family home. This parcel does have some history. Back in 1995, it was requested to go to C2. It was disapproved by the Planning Commission and withdrawn before a vote at the City Council. Here's the home in question, a very familiar city building right across the street. And here's from the parcel in question in the backyard. Honestly, I always thought this was like a pumping station entrance or something, but this is the back entrance to that house, and that would be the driveway to the buildable lot that they're talking about rezoning. So pretty much the width of that driveway going straight back is the zoning request on this. And that's looking up towards Clarksville High School and across the street. There's a possible small sewer main extension required. No other comments except for the school system comments listed. Historical estimates would be one home. Staff does recommend approval. It's consistent with the land use plan. The request of R2 is at a location where R1 single family transitions to C5 highway and commercial district and does not affect the character of the neighborhood. Adequate infrastructure will serve the site and no environmental issues were identified. Planning Commission also recommends approval.
Thank you, Mr. Tindall. Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Tyndall, so, I mean, I see the value and I don't have a problem with this, but my concern is moving forward. Are we setting a precedent that will now allow neighborhoods to come back and rezone in their own areas for R2, R3? And when you rewrite, I mean, do we have enough protection right now? And is that something, as you rewrite the codes, that you're going to be careful with? That's my, like, if we allow them to divide their property that into a smaller one, then, I mean, I'm just have a concern.
Yeah, well, we feel this is an easier case because it's obviously adjacent to the commercial. In fact, my personal opinion would be if this entire parcel wanted to go C2 and divide to maybe 3 or 4 lots next to it, you're leaving a very busy state highway going back into a neighborhood. This neighborhood is still a very viable neighborhood. I don't think we have any good pictures of the houses in the neighborhood. There's a close picture, but they're still in good age, good shape. They're being maintained well. We have portions of this community where the character of the neighborhood has left. It has gone. Maintenance has been a problem. Homes are falling apart or in such disrepair where maybe even house flipping at that point is beyond saving that neighborhood or that house. And that's where you might look for some density in some portions, especially areas built in maybe the 50s or 60s where the homes are aging out. And again, it all depends. We're not going to go mid-block or into the interior of a subdivision and say we're going to now go 2 or 3 zones higher. But if you're adjacent to an industrial area, a commercial area, and the comprehensive plan supports this, even in the suburban districts, when you're a buffer from the neighborhood to the commercial areas or to the higher intensity uses or to the major roadways, that stepping a zone or 2 higher may be appropriate. It's a wise use of our infrastructure. You're not using much more land that you haven't used already. But again, those are evaluated on a case-by-case basis and why we do this every month.
Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to point out that the only house that this really affects is the house that's owned by the same people. And it's just the one house that's right there. So just like he referenced, it's just taking this back part right here with it having commercial right beside it. It's not affecting anything else, and it's not, like he said, in the middle of the neighborhood.
Any other comment or question? Seeing none, we're ready for item E, 96, ordinance 96, 2023-24. Mr. Tindall, please, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. And this one is kind of similar to the last one. This is Z19 2024 application of Daniel Hayes, 1.18 acres, and it's currently zoned C5 and requesting to go to R2A. It is not an extension of the R2A, and here it is just off Fort Campbell Boulevard and Ashbury Road. Council Ward number 4. It's currently a vacant cleared lot, and the applicant statement is to downzone from C5 in order to develop 7 single-family lots. There's, it's hard to see there, there's 2 R2 lots that were just rezoned in the last year or two just north of it in the neighborhood. They took 1 lot from R1 to R2 for 2 houses. Here's the property in question, Ashbury, and looking at the cross street. And then that house there on the left is in the R2 zoning. This is looking a little further down. This area does have a sinkhole at the end of the street. It is a drainage area. It has been known in history over time to have water over the street in this area. We do have a plat, and there's the fire department right across the street. We do have a plat that does show that the corner, the lower left corner here, does have a 100-year floodplain on it, but it doesn't impact anything outside the setbacks of the property. So they could build the homes high enough or bring the fill in to make sure that the homes, any home built out there would not be subject to the 100-year floodplain on the corner. And that's looking up towards Fort Campbell Boulevard. You can see the rise of the road out there. The street department did bring up the 100-year flood area. Water blocks Ashbury Road and Shannon Street and impacts the southeast corner of the property. That would be addressed during subdivision phase. If they come to subdivide, we would work on pipe size or grading or ditches and try to make sure that the area could actually get improved potentially. You also see the school system comments about the capacities at Kenwood. Applicant's estimate is 7. Our estimate is 7. That doesn't happen too often. Staff recommends approval. The proposed zoning request is consistent with the land use plan. The request of R2A, single-family residential, is at a location where R2 transitions to C5, or highway and arterial district, and does not affect the character of the neighborhood. The R2A single-family district is more appropriate than the current C5 highway and highway arterial commercial district. Drainage concern has been identified at the southeast corner of the property at Shannon Street and Ashbury Road. The drainage matter does not appear to affect potential building footprints of any future lots. Planning Commission also recommends approval.
Councilperson McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm familiar with this area. This was my ward during the big flood that we had. And my concern is, and this might be a street department question, right now with that property undeveloped, I feel like it's absorbing more of the runoff water that's headed towards the sinkhole. And I guess I need to ask Mr. Smith what the plans are for drainage, because regardless of the house that was removed, that was flooded to the top floor during that flood, the houses that sit on the back of that sinkhole, like Mrs. Ford's old house, they all had severe water in them as well. So I'm concerned about that, how it's going to affect the existing neighbors.
Is that a question for Mr. Smith?
Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Smith, sorry. He heard his name.
Your name was called.
Absolutely. So when the plat's final, our requests and those come through, they'll show that corner that Mr. Tindall referenced of the 100-year flood. Mm-hmm. Any initial time to building and codes, any of the finished floor elevations will be established by the engineer and submitted against what that finished floor elevation is. And all the homes will have to be a certain distance above. All the equipment for the homes, the HVAC and that sort of stuff, based on the stamped engineer that supplies that to us.
My concern's for the existing homes that are down the hill where the water's going to run to.
Yes. So they are removing, obviously, area that's picking up water, and they have to account for that, typically by a compensatory cut or any of those kinds of things. They have to have capacity somewhere else, so they have to demonstrate where that water is going to go and that there's capacity to accept new water.
Because the water from the other side of Fort Campbell Boulevard heads that way also,
Yes, there's a lot of that.
on our side of town.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so, there'll be some engineering that will.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because like I said, those houses that abut that sinkhole, they get flooded. And I'm just concerned that without that, grass and whatnot there, to absorb the water that is standing there, aside from the water coming under, Fort Campbell Boulevard, that's addressed, for the existing homes.
We'll make sure of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comment or question regarding this ordinance? We're ready for item F, ordinance 97, 2023-24. Mr. Tindall?
All right, I believe this is our last case, Z20, 2024. This is the application of Clarkland. This is just shy of 5 acres, 4.98 acres, currently zoned R1. I think the entire planning commission staff always assumed this was zoned C5. They're requesting to go to C5. It is an extension of the C5 to the west. It's at the corner of the 41A bypass and Denny Road intersection in Council Ward number 7. It's a large single-family residential home site with some trees, and the applicant's statement is to be more appropriate to be a commercial development. It's right adjacent to that user out there, so everything to the right of that building is what's in question for the rezoning here. That's across the street where the construction's been going on. And then looking up toward Denny Road. Comments, a sewer main extension will be required. Street department said must access Denny Road, access to 41A would be required with an access appeal. A traffic study will be required at the site plan. Staff does recommend approval. The proposed zoning is consistent with the land use plan. The request is located at an intersection along an arterial highway and part of a node of commercial activity and is an extension of C5 to the east and to the west. No adverse environmental issues were identified at this time, and the Planning Commission also recommends approval.
Thank you, Mr. Tindall. Councilperson McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the part of the bypass that goes from 2 lanes headed towards Madison Street down to 1. And I don't think TDOT is widening that far down. Is there an estimate on how many car trips would come in and off of that commercial property?
We and the street department did not require a traffic assessment with the rezoning, depending on the end user. This could be divided into multiple uses like you see next door, or it could be one use. We would evaluate it at that time for the impacts on the traffic. As you know, Denny Lane is getting a little bit of realignment out there, and there will be additional lanes from here going north. I'll be happy to get you a copy of the final road plan so you can see what's going on out there.
I think that'd be beneficial for all of us. Thank you.
Okay.
Because I know that it's a challenge right now for the neighbors across the way on the other Denny Road to get in and out of their subdivision. And it's just good to have all the information before we make a decision.
Yeah, that plan is huge. I'll try to get the 2 or 3 specific sheets that you're gonna wanna see.
You mean the zoning for dummies sheets?
Well, I don't think you care about how
Thank
deep
you.
the pipes are and all
Yeah.
out there, but yes. And no, Denny Road will not get its traffic signal as part of that roadway improvement at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comment or question regarding ordinance 97? All right. Anything else, Mr. Tindall?
That concludes our report.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We're now ready for the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please read the consent agenda.
All items in this portion of the agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and may be approved by one motion. However, a member of the council may request that an item be removed for separate consideration under the appropriate committee report. Ordinance 73, 2023-24, second reading. This item was postponed at the April 4th regular session. An ordinance levying a privilege tax upon the occupancy of any hotel or motel or any place in which rooms, lodging, or accommodations are furnished to transients for consideration. Ordinance 85, 2023-24, second reading, amending that zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Quick Trip Corp. for zone change on property located at the northwest corner of West Vintage Way and Vintage Way intersection from C4 Highway Interchange District to C5 Highway and Arterial Commercial District. Ordinance 87, 2023-24, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Sean Robertson for zone change on property west of and adjacent to Martin Street, south of Crossland Avenue, east of Cumberland Drive, from R3 3-family residential district to R6 single-family residential district. Ordinance 88, 2023-24, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Sean Robertson for zone change on property on the northwest corner of the Tiny Town Road and Green Acres Drive intersection from R1 single-family residential district to C5 highway and arterial commercial district. Ordinance 91, 2023-24, second reading, an ordinance adopting the comprehensive plan 2024. Resolution 46, 2023-24, a resolution approving appointments to the Gas and Plumbing Board, the Human Relations Commission, and the Board of Equalization, and the adoption of minutes from April 4th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before I call on Councilperson Zacharias, let me give you a quick update on item A, Ordinance 73, 2023-24, which is the occupancy tax. Second reading, that is the current posture of this ordinance. It is my intention next week to bring an amendment to that ordinance that will do two things. First of all, reduce the percentage from 4% to 2.75%, and also make the effective date of that ordinance January 1st, 2025. After meetings with hoteliers, they asked that that be put in place, the delay be put in place to allow them to fulfill the contracts they have in place for calendar year 2024. And it is my intention to bring that amendment forward. Obviously, we've had emails from certain hoteliers and others expressing opposition to anything but opposition to the new rate that we will propose next week. But I will say that 2% is a fail, that we will not be able to move forward with the project if we're at 2%. It just will not cash flow. Even at 2.75, it'll be thin, it'll be difficult, but we will try to move forward anyway. And for clarity, because there's been some information out there, our occupancy tax allows federal employees to be tax exempt because it's considered a state tax done according to state law. So that needs to be said as well. And furthermore, after conversations with the museum and Mr. Lott, who's with us today, and because they're well established, 40 years old this year, we are going to delay the inclusion of the museum in the Act Authority for the first few months to give the Act Authority time to be stood up and get their feet under them and get their policies in place. And then later on, the Act Authority and the Museum Board with management can discuss what they want to do next. So that kind of tells you where we are with that ordinance. So I'll go to the list now. Councilperson Zacharias.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I just wanted to share some information on this same item, item A, the hotel motel tax ordinance. One of the I guess arguments that I keep getting verbatim in my email refers to how this tax is going to negatively affect soldiers who are here at TDY, here as part of a PCS or something like that. And I'm not going to accuse anybody of intentionally misrepresenting anything. It could just be not in a position to know. But when a soldier stays in a hotel on TDY or as part of a PCS, there is a rate that is paid. That rate is $107. I just looked it up for here in Clarksville. When that soldier files that travel voucher, any taxes do not count against that rate that they are reimbursed for. They will file, so one item on their travel voucher will be the hotel rate up to $107. And then you list individually all of those other things that end up getting added to your invoice when you go stay at a hotel. So if there's like a resort fee or a hotel motel tax or an occupation fee, all of those things are claimed differently. So an increase in the hotel motel tax is not going to price soldiers out of being able to stay where their travel per diem allows them to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So, Mayor, you originally asked, I believe, for 4%. So how are you making up the funding?
Well, we are, my word is carving out the museum from the Act Authority funding, which is 1.1 million and change annually, to buy us a little time and a little room. As I mentioned, 2.75 will be very thin in terms of being able to service the debt on a new performing arts center, as well as fund the necessary operations of the Act Authority and the Roxy and the Arts and Heritage Council. So that's how we're making up the difference.
So we'll still have the museum as a budget line.
They're in the budget proposal now, and when you see it in a couple of weeks, they will be in there. Councilperson McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to tack on to what my colleague to my right had stated. There are a lot of hotels that are across the country that observe the government rate, even if you're not on orders. So that's also something, if somebody is coming to Clarksville and they happen to be a government employee or a soldier, they are, in a lot of cases, allowed that same government rate. I agree, it was misinformation. I'm glad that that was clarified. And thank you for explaining about where the offset is going to come. And you had said that the museum was going to be removed for a few months, but if they are being funded in our general budget, will that be until next budget year? Or I'm looking for a clarification.
Yeah, it will be an annual appropriation, just like they're an annual appropriation now.
Right.
And then during the fiscal year, we anticipate the management of the museum and the board will discuss with the Act Authority leadership the next fiscal year,
Okay.
which will be 26,
Okay, so potentially for a year, they'll be,
potentially for a year.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Councilperson Streetman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to add a little bit of information as well. As was mentioned, we have received several emails and a couple of different things. One, it has been referenced that the different rates in the state, and one of the rates talked about Nashville and how their rate also included convention and stadium taxes, or apologize, I'm not looking right at it to see the word. One thing, I've gone out and looked at a lot of different hotels and tried to look at the different information. Something to take into consideration there is really what that fee is, a $2.50 fee per room. When you look at Nashville, according to Visit Nashville, they have 40,000 rooms available to rent or available to rent out. And according to Visit Clarksville, we have 3,000. So when you take that $2.50, what you're looking at is a huge amount of density with that. If every room there were rented out a night, that's $100,000. We don't have that availability here with only having 3,000 rooms available. You put that same $2.50 charge against a room here, and if we rented out every room that was available, then you'd be looking at $7,000. So you can't really do a fair comparison there when you're talking about that. Also, in one of the emails that we got, it was referenced that there is a bill before the state that could make changes to the way things currently are in the state, and saying how it could cause issues for Clarksville in the future. I went out, took a look at the bill as it stands today. I looked at the bill that is before the state now, that's with the Senate. What it's talking about is essentially that that we would have to file an annual report. And I can assure you that our financial department has zero issue with having to file an annual report there and turn that in. And there's not going to be an issue also, because one of the things I looked up, and everyone can look this up for themselves, the Tennessee code is available online, but you can see where it talks about tourism development means the acquisition and construction of and financing and retirement of debt facilities related to tourism. That's one of the bills. Another one where it references tourism means the planning and conducting of programs of information and publicly designed to attract tourist visitors and other interested persons from outside of the area of the municipality or municipalities creating the authority, and also encouraging and coordinating the efforts of other public and private organizations or groups of citizens to publicize the facilities and attractions of the area, and also shall include the acquisition, construction, and remodeling of facilities useful in the attraction and promoting of tourists, conventions, and recreational business. Above that, you can also see project. Means a facility or a group of facilities, and I don't want to sit here and read it all to you, but it that is available for use by the public, including without limitation, visitor centers, performing arts centers, museum, recreational facilities such as greenways and trails, and other government-owned tourist attractions. We often see or visit Clarksville, they publicize that for people to come to our community, and some of the things that are listed, we just mentioned the museum. That's a great thing for tourists that come to the area to go to, but so is the Roxy. So I know there are people that come to this community, and we promote people to come here to see that. One of the great things about the Performing Arts Center, what that we'll be able to have there is, I know it was mentioned that we have families that come here for sports, and I love that. I love that we have them coming and playing soccer. That's why we're working on the Exit 8 facility to build more soccer fields, to be able to host those things here. But it'll be great because we could have dance competitions. We can have cheerleading competitions. These are things that can happen right here. Those are more families that are going to be coming here, more that'll be staying in the hotels, and of course we only have one that'll be in our downtown area, so they're going to have to stay out by exit 11, out by exit 4, so they're going to be staying in there, and they're going to be utilizing this facility. So I ask that we support this. I think this is going to be something that is great for our community, and I appreciate all the work that the mayor as well as Miss Mata has put into this to be able to, try and get this done for us. And I just hope everyone will be on board with this. We have the building already, unless we just want to kind of just be stuck with it, that we need to move forward on this.
Thank you. We're now ready for the Finance Committee report. Chairperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one moment, I apologize.
Okay.
Had to switch my screen. Ordinance 63, 2023, 24, first reading as amended. This item was postponed at the April 4, 2024 regular session. An ordinance amending the official code, Title 12, Streets and Other Public Ways and Places, Chapter 1 in general, pertaining to Section 12-124 sidewalks. Councilperson Karen Reynolds, and this was voted for disapproval by both the Finance and the Transportation, Streets, and Garage Committees.
I'll recognize the sponsor of that ordinance, Councilperson Reynolds.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, before I begin, I just wanted to remind you the overarching intent of the sidewalk ordinance is to put sidewalks everywhere. We just heard, we're looking for a grant to make it safer for vehicles and pedestrians. This sidewalk is really intended to set a standard and to change the culture in our community. Enhance accessibility, make it safer for children and residents as pedestrians to move about in our community. We are requiring sidewalks to be 4 feet in the neighborhood and 5 feet on collector roads. I am recommending a barrier strip, which is waiverable by the street department, to provide a place for for mailboxes, light fixtures, etc. This also prevents the sidewalk or the bike path from becoming what is known as the vehicle recovery zone, like when you swerve because you're on your phone. And that was actually a term that was given to me when I contacted Scott Windley at the Access Board, the Senior Accessibility Specialist. This ordinance also provides transparency in the waiver and appeal process, which we do not have currently. So I'd like to address a couple questions from last time that I've followed up on, as well as some other information. First of all, I'd like to remind everyone that the current ADA requires 36-inch sidewalks, and they can be narrowed to 32 inches. The update is the updated sidewalk that I'm proposing has 5 feet on local roads and 4 feet inside the community. This was actually a compromise. The street department had originally asked that I make them 5 feet. I went out and spoke to the builder community and came back into the street department committee and narrowed it back down to 4 feet inside the community and 5 feet on the outside. And there's actually a little logic to that. When you're talking, and I again spoke to the Scott Windley at the Access Board, when ADA actually said 3 feet and then you could narrow to 32 inches, they were actually talking about inside buildings. That was, and then at every 200 feet, you have to have a 5-foot passing zone. So in our community, that's often the driveways. If there is not a driveway every 500 feet, every 200 feet, you still have to have 5-foot sidewalks. And that's why most communities, and probably why the street department originally had said, let's just do 5 feet everywhere. But that was a compromise. I'd also, one of the things that Mr. Winley said was, you know, if you're in a building and you can't quite get through the 32 inches, you're just going to scrape the wall with your wheelchair. But if you're on a road and you go off the edge of the sidewalk, you're going to either fall into the traffic or fall off the edge of the sidewalk and perhaps roll down a hill. So that is why I think it's very important that we go to 4 feet and 5 feet. And also, ProWalk is coming. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of that. Let me see. So he also talked about something that is called pedestrian generators. In our community, pedestrian generators are bus stops, or currently we talked about the responsibility zone for sidewalks. If we as a community say that you are required to have your child walk to school and we have a sidewalk ordinance, then we are responsible to make sure that there is a path. And we talked about, historical sidewalks or new buildings, and he did say that there is a risk if after we pass a sidewalk generator or perhaps we fix a road that has a bus stop and we do not correct the inability of a person to access that, then we are not meeting the current ADA standards. So I did want to go back also and talk about address the document that was sent by our Director of Streets and just add a couple comments to it. Oh, here it is. So when he talked about the minimum dimension, again, he said that 5 feet, but we're requiring 4 feet inside the community and 5 feet on collector roads. The grass buffer, I did want to just read a little bit of a comment about a grass buffer from TDOT, actually. Let me see, where did they write? Let me see. Oh, I lost it. But grass buffers, again, if I'm in a wheelchair and I go off the edge of the road, off the edge of the sidewalk, and there's a grass buffer, or I'm a child riding a bike on a sidewalk, I'm not going to fall into traffic. There's space. We also need space for our telephone poles and for our mailboxes. They should not be planted inside of the sidewalk. Let me see, cane detection. And then he mentioned boundaries. Boundaries are required in inside of the new, I had it pasted here and I lost it. Let me see, sorry. Inside of, inside of ProWalk final rule. In the final rule, they say that they had always intended to be a boundary in the sidewalk, and if you don't have the boundary, how are people going to get to and from? Like if I don't put a boundary around the sidewalk, how's my child going to walk to school? So we are hampering the way that children can, or the accessibility for our children. And both sides of the roads. So I think I will be adding a comment after approval with the city lawyer that one thing is when I talked to him, I know there was another email that referenced 2011 ProWalk standards versus 2023. When I talked to the accessibility board, he made it very clear that you can reference 2023. You can say that you're going to follow the standards. If you choose to do that, you can always go above and beyond. Remember, ADA and ProWalk are the minimum standards. That's why they don't have any waivers, because they are considered the minimum standards for the community, not the maximum. He said, but there is no, you cannot really reference 2011, but I will make a statement that says that we will, upon adoption of PROWOG, the guidelines, upon the adoption of DOJ and Department of Transportation, we will also adopt PROWOG. And that will should put some of the concerns. There is one statement or one area of concern that I'd like to address with Councilperson McLaughlin. We talked about it at length in the committee. And Councilperson McLaughlin, we share the concern that there was areas where to be only allow waivers of the sidewalk ordinance inside the street department. And, you know, the planning commission is required to follow the zoning ordinance as it's written. They don't have the authority to waive sidewalks. There has been some confusion. The planning commission, you know, there's been several votes, but there's no written authority. We're trying to close that loophole. But Mr. Bittner, when I spoke to him this week, he had a concern for the language that we had, and I was wondering if you had talked to him or if you were going to amend that language.
Is that a question to the council person from Ward 2?
Yes, it is.
You are recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize. I don't remember that being a concern of mine, the waiver. I think it was another member of our committee.
Not the waiver, the sentence that says, any waivers to this code's section cannot be approved or authorized by the Clarksville Montgomery County RPC, Access Board, or Appeals. Sentence Q. That was like way back when. That was one of yours.
I'm happy with that language.
That's the language that they're concerned about.
Okay. Well, no, I haven't talked to him about that.
Okay. So I just want you to know in advance that we will be discussing that language and that there was a concern for the legality of being able to say that.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Councilperson Straitman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say a few different things. One, I've brought this for everyone. I'm glad it was referenced that we do already have a sidewalk ordinance in place because there has seemed to have been some confusion among the public as to whether we have one or not. And we do have quite a lengthy one here. If you'll pass that around, this is our current sidewalk ordinance that is already requiring sidewalks to be built. And I know it was referenced what Mr. Smith talked about in the Transportation, Streets, and Garage Committee meeting, but I do want to share again also for the benefit of the public, for everyone to see, you know, exactly the message directly from the Street Department Director, Mr. David Smith. Council members, I shared this with the Transportation, Streets, and Garage Committee, and I just wanted to send it to the rest of the council to alleviate any confusion. Sidewalks are required by our existing ordinance as illustrated below. Ordinance 63, 2023, 2024 does not have the capacity to influence the enabling legislation of entities such as the Board of Zoning Appeals, just one of the organizations that has waived sidewalk requirements in the past. Instead, it creates contrast and a point of confusion for our development community. Further, neither ADA nor PROAG requires sidewalks, but rather governs the design and installation thereof. And then there's a chart that's included below that discusses are sidewalks required? Yes, according to the existing ordinance for the city of Clarksville. No, with ADA and PROAG, and yes, with the ordinance that we have before us. The minimum dimensions, according to the existing ordinance, is 4 feet. For ADA, it's 3 feet. For PROAG, it's 4 feet. The ordinance before us is 5 feet. Grass buffer is not required by the existing ordinance for the city of Clarksville, nor is it required by ADA or PROAG, but it is required by this. Cane detection is required by the existing ordinance, as well as ADA, PROAG, and the ordinance before us. Boundary sidewalks varies on frontage with the existing ordinance that has nothing to do with ADA, PROAG, and but it is here for ordinance 63, 2023, 24. Waivers and appeals, it's a yes and a no for the city of Clarksville. The existing ordinance, no to ADA, no to ProAg, yes to this ordinance. Both sides of the roads for the city of Clarksville, existing ordinance, yes. ADA, no. ProAg, no. This ordinance 63, 2023 is requiring it. I'd also like to mention that Mr. Smith has not only presented to the Transportation, Streets, and Garage Committee, but has also presented directly to us. And one of the things that he has told us that he has asked for, what he believes the only change that we need for our sidewalk ordinance is that sidewalks shall be mandatory within any new development and along newly constructed public roads, as well as dedicated permanent roadway easements in all zoning districts with the exception of district zoned M2 and M3 industrial, and shall meet the requirements of this section. That's the changes that our street department has asked for. He is the expert in the field, as we discussed a moment ago, talking about the language, talking about it being able to override the zoning appeal and others. It's been very clear, regardless of how this is worded, we do not have the jurisdiction to be able to override that. So it's not closing any type of loophole with them because, again, we don't have that jurisdiction. We've also heard from the Home Builders Association in regard to the cost that this is going to add to the homes. We just had a presentation tonight for the reappraisal and how much the price of homes have gone up over the years. And what we're talking about now is doing something that is going to add to that. We've talked previously about how this is going to add to the cost for our community as well. And by our community, I'm referring to the taxpayers. This is not something that where it's allowing us to do more sidewalks. What it's allowing us to do is spend more money to do the sidewalks. So it's either spend more or get less. I would ask that we, rather than pass this, what I would like to see is instead do exactly what our street department has asked for us to do and make the changes that he needs made that he's needed for some time. And we've spent months now going over this, and he could have already had those changes in place to be able to enforce that better. So I ask that next week, we vote this down and focus instead on making the changes that have been brought before us. One other thing I do want to point out is that our current ordinance that we have in place states that, they have to follow all federal guidelines. ProAg has not been approved. We don't know that it's going to even be approved this year, likely not until next year. And you never know how long something like that may actually take before it's officially in place. When it is officially in place, what we have is already going to handle that, because then that's going to become a federal guideline and it's going to need to be enforced as such. So I think we trust what we have with that. And also want to point out one other thing. I know it's been talked about what TDOT is requiring, and I think there's been some conversation about the 2-foot grass. Has that also been mentioned? I'm asking that of the sponsor for the TDOT roads.
Councilperson Reynolds?
Yes, I mentioned it.
Okay,
Actually,
I just needed to make sure you did say that they required that.
I did not say they required it.
But they're doing that now, right?
It's in their language, in their multimodal. The language for that it is preferred.
But
It is in their multimodal chapter 3 language.
TDOT's not doing that right now, correct?
TDOT has the ability to waiver it, just as our street department has the ability to waiver it, and they choose to waiver it. But it is in their statement saying that it's preferred and that it's safer to use. That's actually where I took the language from.
Okay, then I just wanted to clarify then that they're not doing it themselves.
In many areas they do, but where they can't, they waive it. It'll be the same. Mr. Smith actually worked with me on much of the language in this, and part of it was to allow the ability to waiver, and he can say that it's not the right place and not put one in. Same waiver language, very close to what is used in TDOT's.
Okay, well, and of course, if we're waiving it all the time, then I don't really see where putting that in place to require it really makes a lot of sense. And I know that they are currently putting the sidewalks over on Madison Street, and I knew there was no 2-foot barrier there. I'm not sure quite of the width, because with all the construction, there's not a way for me to get in there and measure what the width is that they're doing there, but I knew that there was no 2-foot barrier of a grass strip along there. Again, that speaks to what I just said in regard to doing waivers. And if the city is going to be telling developers they all have to put the 2-foot barrier in, but then they're going to be waiving it for themselves, I'm not quite sure what an issue that's going to make for everybody else when they're saying, do as I say, not as I do. So again, I ask that we vote this down and actually move forward with doing something to take care of the street department exactly as they've requested. Thank you.
Councilperson Zacharias, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll have a lot more to say about this next week, but I just can't pass up the opportunity to reference something else that we heard today during the special called session. I understand that we have a sidewalk ordinance. It's not working. If you look at the feedback that, by all accounts, we got a ton of about the Safe Streets for All, one thing that was mentioned across all demographics was the inaccessibility and lack of availability of sidewalks. If you look at the comprehensive plan, it specifically charges city and county leadership with trying to come up with ways to improve our sidewalk situation. So if the best that we can do is, well, we've already got a sidewalk ordinance, I'm just going to say it's not working. The people don't think that it's working. They are telling us that it's not working. What's the solution? If this ordinance is not the solution, what's the solution? Because we can't just keep saying that's not good enough and continue with the status quo that is not working. Thank you.
Councilperson McLaughlin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. After our last voting session, I did, as promised, and sent some recommendations to Mr. Bittner for him to look at. And so those will be presented next week, but I can address some of the concerns that came up. One of them was that we added, and Mr. Bittner, thank you for your legal expertise on this, but that we added the words published, approved, and enacted. So if we're referring to a TDOT guideline, it has to have been, under what I'm going to propose, it has to be published, approved, and enacted. Published, as the discussion went at our last meeting, wasn't good enough as far as what is actually the rules as guidelines. And then also, part of my amendment is to break out what the city of Clarksville shall do versus TDOT under, let's see, K, apologize. Number one, I'm recommending that be removed in its entirety. And number two would be changed, and we'll have copies for this for y'all next week, but I just want y'all to start thinking about it. If you have some other ideas, you could speak to the city attorney about for amendments. But sidewalks on the city of Clarksville maintained roads and streets shall conform to the most recent published, approved, and enacted version of PROWOG, or the most recent published, approved, and enacted version of ADA standards as appropriate. In the case of a conflict between the provisions of ADA and PROWOG, the most stringent will apply. And then specifically breaking out in another section, all sidewalks on TDOT maintained road streets shall meet the requirements of TDOT, ADA, and PROWOG, the published, approved, and enacted. So one of my big concerns was that the paragraph that talked about sidewalks was too general, and in my brain it looked like we were expected to follow what the TDOT standards were on our streets. And so now under this proposed amendment next week, it'll be defined that the city of Clarksville is not required to follow what TDOT does on their main streets. We're required to follow our rules for our feeder roads, etc. So anyway, Mr. Bittner has been great, and we'll have a cleaned up version of the amendments next week. But the big thing was, I know several people had discussed how can we how can we require anybody to follow something that's just been published and hasn't been approved and enacted by the governing bodies? And then another note that I had made was the concern about waivers. As a member of the Transportation Street and Garage Committee, I wouldn't expect the city of Clarksville to give a waiver to themselves because of a drainage issue if they would not apply the same thing to a developer. So the waiver is not for the city of Clarksville, it's for anybody that's looking to build a sidewalk if there are environmental issues, grade issues, et cetera. Thank you.
Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized.
Yes, I'd like to talk a little bit about the waiver as well. And you only have to drive down Powell Road to see, we built homes, we didn't require a sidewalk, now we're putting one in. If we had required the sidewalk and if our ordinance was working up front, that sidewalk would be in place and there wouldn't be a cost shift of the original builder to the new builder or back to the city. I also would say most of the waivers, while they apply to everyone in general, they've been identified who and how the waiver should be. But the city does more waivers because we are doing infill. When you're building new and greenfield, you should not need waivers. So that's the difference unless there's a true topographic issue. The city will need them more because we're trying to go back in and do them. That's a big difference. It's really not apples to oranges when you talk about the building versus the city. I'd also like to say we talk about cost and affordable housing and attainable housing. And I would say that no one is truly building attainable housing. I just picked this up in my neighborhood. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,323 square feet. $290,000. That's not attainable or affordable if you're at the 80% income. Really, and when you have to go back in and build these sidewalks, really you're just cost shifting back to the taxpayers and people who are troubled. We're already reevaluating our taxes, which is going to be a strain for people on fixed income. And part of the reasons that we're always talking about taxes is that we're absorbing costs that we shouldn't have to. If we built the sidewalks right, and as a previous speaker said, if it was working up front, we wouldn't have had to pay in $6 million last year, and we have not even budged our walkability score. All the money that we're putting in, the walkability score for Clarksville came out again, we have not moved one bit because we're still trying to fix things that should have been done in the first place. There's a difference between greenfield building, greenfield infrastructure, and doing it right the first time, and the cost of going back in, eminent domain, and trying to fit it into a road and into homes that were put too close to the road. So, and it costs the taxpayers much more money than it would cost the developers to do it right the first time.
Are you through? Oh, okay. Just want to make sure. Thought you were looking for notes. Councilperson Streetman.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is in reference to saying our current sidewalk ordinance isn't working. Our current sidewalk ordinance is working. We have new developments. We have sidewalks that are being put in. Prior to that, this ordinance being put in place, that wasn't happening. This is happening now. That's why we are going back. We're going back in much older areas. I can give you a reference of where one of the sidewalks is that we're building is in front of Clarksville High and along Richview. That was, I couldn't even tell you how many years ago, but I know I graduated at least a few decades ago. So, and there wasn't, the school was there, the sidewalk wasn't. So I'm not giving the number, but that we are going back in much older places, and we're having to do that. I know Powell Road was referenced, and I know maybe the person that referenced it isn't aware that Powell Road was actually annexed in. So yes, there have been homes that have been built there, but the majority of the homes that have been built along Powell Road, on Powell Road, were already there. What you've seen is developments that have come in, and the sidewalks are being built in the developments where those are. Of course, this again goes back to the change that has been requested by the street department to help get those along the other roads as well, so that it has those on the boundaries, so that it solves that bit of a contrast or conflict that's there in regard to getting that done. But the question was asked, what is the solution? The solution is we are building sidewalks. We are going back to those older areas before the ordinance was in place and putting these and trying to put sidewalks in place. When the county chose to expand the parent responsibility zone, which caused more students that were walking to school or parents can't take them, they're having to walk to school. When the county made that decision for fiscal reasons, it did put a fiscal responsibility then on us to have to go back and put sidewalks in along those areas to try and allow a safe route for them to be able to get there. But I asked back the question of, what is it in the new ordinance that gets us more sidewalks? Because that's been the complaint that we hear, that we want more sidewalks. To be more walkable, we're going to need more sidewalks. And again, we've already talked about that there is a cost. The comment was even made last month that, yeah, it's going to hurt, but we need to do this. And hurt means it's going to cost more money to be able to do it. But I ask you, what is it in the new ordinance versus our current ordinance that brings more sidewalks for us, other than, again, the change that's been, the small change, that's a big change for the street department to be able to have in place? And I ask you, other than, again, the need for the and the as well as what's not working in our current ordinance? Because I appreciate the ones that spent the time to create this many years ago so that it did start happening in the developments. Because again, older neighborhoods, they don't have those, but all the newer neighborhoods, they all have those sidewalks. It's great to be able to go around in there. So I say we need the tweak to be able to fix it, but everything else that we're requiring, I know it was also mentioned, especially in the new developments, you have the 2-foot barrier so that the mailbox is not in the sidewalk. In the new developments, I'm not sure that they're even getting mailboxes now. I think now what they get is one big stand where they get those. It's not as though you have those along there. Dictating exactly where the utilities go and telling them they have to go in that 2-foot. I think that I would really rather trust the heads of our gas and water department and the head of Clarksville Department of Electricity to be able to determine exactly where they think the utilities are best going to be suited to be able to go in there. There's a lot of issues I have with this, and I've spoke to them. I'm done. I'm not going to talk again. I've used my 2 times, but like I said, I trust the head of our street department to know what's best for our community, and I'm going to go with the opinion that he's given to us on multiple occasions.
Councilperson Reynolds for the final word.
Yeah, I would just like to say that when you drive into our community and you're driving 45 miles down the road and the sidewalk is hanging off the edge of the road, I don't know, but that's not safe, and that's not a road I would want my child to walk on. I'm a runner. Well, I used to be a runner. I'm a walker, and when the access board, Scott talked about recovery zone in bike area, in the bike lanes. It was like, oh yeah, I never heard of that term, but it's why I won't ride a bike in that area. And I continue, and I encourage everyone to drive down Powell Road. There's not a sidewalk along that road in the new neighborhoods or in the old neighborhood. And they are currently building a sidewalk. I have the residents that call me right now about it, and I will have images where the homes are less than 2 years old. We did not require a sidewalk. And now we're putting one in right on the edge of the road with the mailbox stuck in the middle of them. I'll have some images. But if you want to know why and what I'm trying to fix, it is that. I will be honest, when I started this process, it was also to bring the decision-making of waivering sidewalks to one entity with transparency. Our process right now does not have transparency. TDOT requires documentation for waivers, and it requires it to be part of the packet. We don't require any of that. So I just, as a previous speaker said, when I ran and knocked doors, our community doesn't think our sidewalk ordinance is working. And the one that we have is from 2007. And I want you to know that the person who wrote it before is the person I've spent many hours with a fine tooth comb, asking for his assistance and getting it right. So thank you.
Councilperson McLaughlin for the final word.
Final word? Apologies, it'll be short. A good example of mailboxes in sidewalks is Lafayette Road from Cunningham Lane to Purple Heart Parkway. All along the north side of the road, you have a narrow sidewalk, and then part of that sidewalk is obstructed by mailboxes. That was prior to this administration, just saying, but that's a really good example on a main road across from a school where a lot of foot traffic occurs because kids are walking to and from Northwest High School, but that's a pretty good example of what the previous speaker was trying to address with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to you, Chairperson Streetman, for the rest of the report.
Ordinance 92, 2023, 24, first reading. An ordinance amending the official code, Part 2, Title 1.5, Human Resources, Chapter 15, Miscellaneous, Section 1.5-1501, Holidays, to add Good Friday as a recognized holiday in place of President's Day. Councilperson Travis Holloman is the sponsor, and the Finance Committee voted for disapproval.
Councilperson Holloman, you're the sponsor. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so what this does is it doesn't take away any of the paid holidays. All it does is swap out President's Day for Good Friday. So instead of having President's Day off and as a paid holiday, you would just simply swap that for Good Friday. Based on the conversation that happened at Finance and Administration, more likely than not, I'll probably end up making an amendment to postpone just so we can do an employee survey, but that's really all I have on it.
Councilperson McLaughlin, you're recognized on this ordinance.
So in Finance Committee, we did discuss trying to determine if the employees, the majority, were in favor of swapping the holidays, and that's what the sponsor spoke to. The HR department has agreed to conduct a survey of the employees to see if they're willing to give up their President's Day for a Good Friday holiday. So just so we have a little bit of information, instead of in a lot of cases, we bring stuff forward that 4 or 5 people might want, but it'd be good to see some data on that before we make a decision that affects more than 1,500 employees. Thank you.
Thank you. While I don't object to surveying employees about issues, I'm not sure about this survey. But anyway, any other comment or question? Okay. Chairperson Streetman, you're recognized.
That concludes my report, Mayor.
All right. We're now ready for Gas and Water Committee. Chairperson Holloman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll have a full report next week.
Thank you. Neighborhood and Community Services, Chairperson Shekina, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll have a full report next week.
All right. Parks and Recreation Department report. Chairperson Zacharias, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll have a full report next week.
Okay. Public Safety Committee, the chairperson is out of town, and someone will have a full report next week. Transportation, Streets, and Garage Committee, Chairperson Smith, you're recognized.
Yes, Mayor, I have a report on May the 2nd.
All right, thank you. We're now ready for the public comment portion of our agenda. Any member of the public wish to address the council? Seeing none, we're ready for the mayor and council member comments. Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized for comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of announcements to make here that the Roxy will have their reveal for season 42 next Saturday, May 4th from 5:30 to 8 p.m. They're going to have heavy hors d'oeuvres and libations from local vendors, including Edward Steakhouse, the Black Horse Pub and Brewery, Yada on Franklin, Finelli's Deli and Market, Beach Haven, Vineyards and Winery, TriStar Beverage of Clarksville, and more, as well as live musical entertainment by New York City-based singer-songwriter Allison Kelly and the Queen City Hired Hands featuring Austin Shaw, Thad Wallace, and Bernard Lott. As an additional perk, those who attend the reveal will have the exclusive opportunity to purchase season 42 10-packs at a deeply discounted rate of $250, offering $100 in savings. If you are interested in purchasing tickets, tickets are $50 a piece, and they can be purchased by visiting the RoxyRegionalTheater.org website or stopping by the theater in person, or you're welcome to call the box office at 931-645-7699. The cutoff date to purchase is Wednesday, May 1st, but they will have a limited number of tickets available at the door for the day of the event. And May 4th is actually going to be quite the busy day because that morning, Clarksville Fire and Rescue will hold a ribbon cutting ceremony for the new headquarters at 8:30 a.m. on May 4th at 821 Franklin Street. So we're excited to be able to see the new headquarters that we're going to have. So you could really make it a Clarksville day on May 4th, even though I think that is Star Wars Day. But exactly.
I knew it was coming. I just knew it was coming. Okay, Councilperson Zacharias for comment.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to invite members of the public out to Kleeman Rec Center between 5:45 and 7:45 on Wednesday, May 1st, for an input meeting for the Bel Air Skate Park. I have gotten some of that information out just through social media channels, and people seem to be really excited about that project. Also on Star Wars Day, Parks and Rec is cutting the ribbon at Edith Pettis Park. So we can just add one more thing to the calendar. That's at 10 o'clock. We'd love to see y'all out there. And then you guys know how I like to use this opportunity to highlight cool things that my family is doing. Last year, I gained a daughter when my son got married. And tomorrow at 3 o'clock, I'm going to gain a doctor. Tony's wife, after successful defense of her doctoral dissertation entitled Characterization and Design of Bioelectrochemical System Hosts from Shigella onidensis escherichia coli.
Use that in a sentence, please.
Sorry, I'm sorry, the speaker's out or
Okay.
something. But congratulations, Megan. I'm sorry I can't be there, but we are all incredibly proud of you.
A round of applause for Megan. All right, Councilperson McLaughlin, top that.
Reminder, if you want your sign, please follow me to my car. Thank you.
Walk slowly. Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you. I forgot one of the stars for May 4th is that Habitat for Humanity will be donating. They're dedicating their 110th home in Montgomery County on May 4th at 10 a.m. at 224 Beach Street. So I think that's just a very commendable thing for them to have hit their 110th home, and they've actually already sent an email out for dedicating the 111th home. So greatly appreciated everything they've done. That's a very large number of families that they have been able to help in our community, and to that I say thank you for all they've done and obviously continue to do with moving on already to 111.
Councilperson Smith for comments.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to remind everybody that April the 27th is American Cleanup Day, I do believe. Am I correct?
You're correct.
And I will have a team that will be out cleaning up the Red River area. There are many teams that you can get on, and if you're not on a team, in your community, just go out and start picking up some paper, clean up your neighborhood.
There you go.
And also, I'm going to announce that on May the 10th, I will be traveling to Washington, D.C. to graduate with my third master's degree. And so I just wanted to make that clear, that I am a little educated. It might not seem I have a little good sense, but common sense, but I am very educated. Thank you.
So a round of applause.
Thank you.
Anyone else? And finally, I think today is Councilperson Wanda Allen's birthday. So if you see her, text her happy birthday.
Wanda.
Anything else? We'll stand adjourned. See you next week.